All right, welcome back to the We Not I podcast. Today we got a very special guest. Coyne is joining us. We've got, he's a TikToker, Instagram, all kinds of video producing, and put out a post about mental health that really reached me and touched me on it. So I appreciate you jumping on, Connor. How you doing tonight?
No, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. I think this is awesome. Such a cool opportunity, and obviously, like, very grateful to be, talking about something that we're both really passionate about.
Yeah, dude. I was thinking about it earlier today, and like the internet is such a cool place. Like with TikTok and Instagram and stuff, you just come across things, and like I could already feel like you and I are going to establish a cool connection, and you believe in a lot of the same things that I do. And the reason I
Yeah.
started this podcast is to kind of get more health out there, but specifically men's health, and just chatting about it. I mean, that's the name of the name of
It,
it.
it's
Chat about it. So
it's absolutely no. It's so wild how, like, especially like on TikTok too, the algorithm, man. Like the algorithm just, like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but it shows a lot of things like on your feed that like like that you're interested in, right?
yeah,
So for the longest time, like I was on like architecture stuff because I found like one TikTok where I was like, oh, this is a cool building. And then of course, like the next 30. But like more recently, because of that like mental health TikTok video that I made, a lot of my stuff has been like mental health, like positivity, like well-being, like all this stuff. And then like specifically like men's mental health. And it's like so cool, like you were saying, like how the internet, Instagram, TikTok, social media, just in general, like is able to connect people like you and I together, us and all these viewers and listeners and everything like that. So it really is like such a cool place. And, I kind of look at it being like, oh, I have a platform now
yeah.
that like I can use to promote like my beliefs of like, mental health, why I'm such an advocate for it, and, firm believer of why it works for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you got 75,000 followers on TikTok and another 10,000 on Instagram. So that's awesome that you're, realizing that now you got all these followers and you can make a difference. And it was June, I believe, that you put out this video, and I can pull it up. It's a 1 second clip for our audio listeners, but
Yeah.
I'm just just play it right here, and then we can talk a little bit about it.
Believe you live your best life when your mind is right. There's this stigma. I'm such a big advocate for mental health, and I think it's so important because I believe you live your best life when your mind is right. There's this stigma around men and mental health that if you're a male and you want to reach out for help, or if you want to talk about your emotions, that there's something wrong with you. Honestly, at this point, I think everybody needs a therapist because therapy is there to improve on aspects of your life. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you if you want to go to a therapist. It's so funny because we sit here and we glorify athletes for practicing 60, 70 hours a week to improve their craft. But the second that you want to go to a therapist and improve, your mental well-being or address some trauma or anything, then people look at you like you have two heads and that there's something wrong. Like it's so fucked up. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. So it's like, it's okay not to be okay. Like it's okay to want to reach out for help, especially as a male. If you do that, it is so fucking empowering.
So a couple explicits there, but you get obviously the gist of it. But yeah, no, that was something that like, so I mental health for me like has been an all much more of a big deal, honestly, like within the past year. So I played baseball, played at the D3 level, and there wasn't much like an emphasis on kind of like your mental well-being like in athletics. So I graduated college in 2017, and at the time, like, I feel like across the board, like in athletics, like people were talking about mental health, but it's not definitely the topic of conversation that it gets today. And so, I was kind of like, oh, like, mental health, like it's important. Like, obviously, like as a baseball player, so much of your kind of like mental approach to the game really affects how you play. And like, obviously, across the board, like with sports in general, too. And so like I wasn't like really big into mental health then. And then once I graduated, I got a job with Harvard and was working in their athletic department. And I would meet some of these like student athletes, and they'd be talking about, all the classes that they're taking, the homework, the stress of practices, and that demand of traveling, and, how to juggle all that stuff. And I'll never forget, I was interviewing a field hockey player, And she told me that her freshman year, she could have been diagnosed with depression and, stress and anxiety and all this stuff. And she told me, she was like, I didn't reach out for help because I was at Harvard and I was a varsity athlete. And I felt like I didn't deserve to reach out for help. And when she told me that, like, that really stuck with me. I was like, the fact that like you felt like you didn't deserve to reach out for help, like because you're at Harvard and you're an athlete and you're, competing at the D1 level, like that's kind of crazy to me. So that kind of like really kicked me in the butt and was like, mental health is like just in general, obviously like so important. And then I started seeing a therapist when I got out of a recent relationship at the end of June, not this past June, but like June, like last year.
Yeah.
So like COVID summer. Um, and at that end of the relationship, I was kind of like, man, at the time, like that was the longest relationship that I was in. And so afterwards, I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, there's something wrong with me. I can't keep a relationship, putting a lot of blame on myself. And so I was like, I want to kind of like address this just so I can be a better boyfriend, husband, a father, down the road for whoever, my next partner will be. And so that's like how I really started getting into therapy. And it's been honestly life changing for me, like just kind of the approach to like my mental well-being. And I think now kind of like my life, who I hang out with and like spend time with, are all like a result of me wanting to put the attention towards, my mind and like making sure that like I'm a good place mentally as well as like physically.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, that's kind of what you said in the video. It's like it's okay to go to therapy just to improve yourself. It's like a
Yeah,
it's a mindset coach, really. You know,
it
and
really is.
you come back each week and you work on different things. And
I know. And that's kind of like when you, at least to me, like personally, like when you break it down like that much, it's so simple, and I was talking to one of my friends and he's in the athletic community, he's a trainer, and he was like, if you're doing a workout or you're training and you hurt your knee or you tweak it or there's something wrong, you do something physically wrong to your body, the first thing that you do is you go to a doctor or you go to a specialist to get it checked out. And then he was like, well, like let's say you wake up in the morning one day and you're depressed, you don't want to eat, you don't feel like doing anything, you don't want to like leave your bed. Why can't you go to a specialist to get that checked out the same way that you would go to a specialist to get your body checked out? And it's like there should be no difference. And it's like this stigma that it's like the second that you want to approach something, with your mental well-being, like everybody's like, whoa, like this, there's something wrong, like someone's, there's something a little crazy going on. And it's like, no, like that's not the case at all. And to me, it's kind of like crazy that nowadays that there's such this like stigma revolving around like mental health, and like specifically like we see it with men and mental health too.
yeah, man. I mean, it's yeah, it's definitely getting better over the years. I started talking about this stuff in 2016, so I've seen it a lot this past 5 years. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, athlete. I mean, you touched on like I grew up playing hockey, so like there's this great documentary I used to watch on Netflix. It's called like The Mask You Live Behind or something like that. That talked all about
Hmm.
football players and hockey players and just kids in general growing up. Be a man, don't cry, like
Yeah.
all this stuff, suppressing your emotions. And I think particularly as athletes with you and I, just you just toughened up or you tried to
Yeah.
hide it and you wouldn't seek help at all. So I'm glad that there's guys out
It's
there like you that are talking about this now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's how like kind of crazy. And like the wild thing is at such a young age, like growing up, 5, 6 year olds today, if they fall, like if they scrape their knee, it's like, oh, don't cry. Like you're okay, don't cry. Like you're fine, like you'll be okay, all this stuff. And it's like even these 5 year olds are told so young to suppress their emotions and suppress their feelings. Like obviously like that kind of like transcends like as they grow up and as they like mature and everything. And I'm sure like playing hockey, like you heard it plenty of times, like, oh, you're fine, like toughen up, like be a man. Like
Mhm.
this whole idea of like being a man, it's like, oh, like it's just kind of like crazy that
Yeah.
this whole idea or like this sense of like toxic masculinity is all based off being tough, not showing emotion, and like this concept and this like idea that in order to be a man, you know need to be emotionless. You need to be like this kind of like alpha, like dominant, have the best job, make the most money, like all this stuff. And it's like, no, like what is like really cool and what is like very like manly is being able to be open and transparent and vulnerable, like with your emotions and feelings, and be wanting to talk about them. And you know, like I feel like, and I'm sure like you definitely could say
Yeah.
the same too. It's like the hardest part too for a lot of these guys who like may be struggling with, you know, their mental health or their mental well-being is like knowing where to start or like how to
Mhm.
like start having a conversation about this. Because you know, I'm sure there's a handful of dudes out there that are like, yeah, like I'm struggling with depression or like I'm struggling with like anxiety, but it's like I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know who to talk to about it. And I think just starting a conversation is like the hardest and the most difficult part about it all.
Yeah, and we're not really taught about those things as kids, like, depression, anxiety. Like, I definitely had anxiety growing up. I just didn't know what
Yeah.
it was or what it was called, and, I did this program with, the Boys and Girls Club where we kinda really just broke it down and talked to them about all these things, and, I think that we're starting to see that New York State was, like, the first state to do a mandate for mental health education, which is really cool.
Mhm. That's
Um,
awesome.
I mean, I'm sure I know I felt it when I shared my story of, you know, my mental health journey,
Yeah.
and now you talking about it, I feel like more of a man now than I ever have, and I feel like, you know, people look up to me or, you know, just sharing that vulnerability gave me strength, and,
Yeah.
have
It's
you felt that as well?
yeah, yeah, no, completely. And you know, when I posted that, like, you know, the therapy TikTok
Mm,
that you showed, it I wasn't necessarily like expecting, obviously, kind of like for it to blow up the way that it did and for all the people to comment and like and share it. You know, I was just I that video came across my FIP and I was like, this is important. Like I just want to talk about it and be like open here. You know, the reason why I go to therapy. And for it to be as well received as it was, and like for some of the comments being like, you know, thanks for talking about this, I'm going to send this to my brother, I'm going to send this to my boyfriend. And it's like it's so cool because you know we can sit here and talk about mental health, but I also think like coming from a male's perspective,
mhm,
it it carries just a different weight to it. And you know, something that I feel like too that's like really important is like kind of going along with like the growing up, like being taught from a young age, like not to talk about your emotions in society. Like women are very much encouraged to be open and talk about their emotions and their feelings and everything. But with men, like we don't necessarily get that. I don't want to say like treatment, but like we don't get that encouragement the same way
mhm,
that women do. And it's kind of like, why? Like, why not? And it's, you know, as an athlete, and I'm sure like you can agree too, it's so cool to kind of see now such an emphasis on athletes and mental health, men and mental health. You know, I think about Kevin Love
yeah,
and the Kevin Love Foundation. And he is just like when I think about like mental health, I'm like, this guy is what he's doing is so cool. But you think about like, you know, he's an NBA all-star. He, you know, is making millions of dollars. His wife is a supermodel. What could this guy really be struggling with? And you're like, wait, no, there's a lot more to it than just kind of like these very like shallow, like materialistic things. And
right,
it's very cool to see now people are very open to like talking about it and very cool to see the kind of like receptivity be at like an all-time high, I feel like.
yeah, it's really cool, and it's so important for, like, younger little basketball players looking up and seeing that.
Yeah.
Even the Kyrie thing recently where he's just like, "No, I'm just
Hmm.
mental health days," kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
that's cool, like, athletes should be able to just do that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, like athletes, but also just like everybody too,
Right.
you know? And it's like in the video I talked like obviously like we kind of glorify these athletes for practicing as much as they do, but it's like us, you and I, everyone listening or watching, like we should be able to practice our mental health just as much and like really put an emphasis on it just as much. And that should kind of be like as respected as these professional athletes practicing or as respected as working 40 hours a week. You know, it's like that also concept is kind of crazy. It's like, oh, like, you know, I just put in a 50 hour work week. And everyone's like, wow, like that's impressive. Like you're working really hard. Okay, well, what did you do for your mental health that whole week?
Yeah.
Like obviously there needs to be some sort of a balance there.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. So you're going to a therapist. What other exterior
Mhm.
things, or are there any other tips or tricks? So a big part of this podcast is to kind of let our listeners or other people know like what works for you.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, with my therapist, like for the longest time, like since I've been seeing her, literally from the beginning, we've kind of worked with this concept of being as present as possible. And she uses this analogy of, having a cup or a glass, and you think about it at the end of the day or throughout the day when you do things for yourself that are beneficial for your mental health, you're filling your glass, right? So as you're laying in bed and you sit there and you think, hey, did I fill my glass today? Like, did I do everything that I wanted to do, like for my mental well-being? Whether that's, maybe waking up early and going for a coffee walk in the morning, that maybe that's calling home and talking to your parents or your friends or, someone like that, or it's going for a run, getting to the gym, this like self-care, anything like that. And I love that analogy because it's like perfect, because like throughout the day I'm sitting there and it's like, 3 o'clock and I'm like, okay, like what have I done for myself today? Like what am I going to be doing for myself? And so, for me, like a big thing is being active and getting outside. Like every day, regardless of the rain or weather, like I try to just get outside because I just think it's important to get out of the apartment, but two, like just to kind of like let your legs loose and like, go out and like be stimulated with your senses, whether that's like, your nose, just the smells, the hear, like anything, just like that interaction with people is so important. And I also think too, for me, is really putting an emphasis on like surrounding yourself with good people. I think about like my friends and like my friend group and like my family like are so supportive. So it's like if I'm going to surround myself with good people that obviously have the best intentions for me, but also when it comes to like mental health are there and support, then that like makes my journey like that much better. So like the analogy of like filling your glass is like very practical, and obviously like that works for me. And I'm sure a lot of people would be like, oh, like that's really cool. I like that kind of like idea, but definitely an emphasis on being like as present as possible. And because I think like, if I were to sit here and be like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do tomorrow? I need to get this email out tomorrow, like, and just stress about it. Well, it's like, there's nothing I can do about it right now. It's like, I'm here, we're chatting. And like, to me, this is what matters. And I'm going to like give my effort and 100% to it. So wanting to be like as present as possible and like really truly during that time, allow myself to talk freely or to think freely or even like emotionally like feel freely, without kind of like these boundaries or these constraints on me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you're filling your cup up, and they've got a little different ingredients in each one, kind of thing. You talked about,
Literally everything.
yeah, you talked about moving your body, and then connection.
Yeah.
Connection is huge, like that sense of community, your friends, and then kind of personal time on that morning coffee walk.
Hmm.
For me, I find like just spending a little time alone or just walking my dog
Yeah.
clears the mind, and then it in turn makes you meditative in a way where the rest of your day you can feel more present.
Oh, exactly. I know one of my favorite things, like when I'm walking in the morning, like to go get coffee or whatever, or if I'm just like walking in general, like especially in the morning, it's just like I'll put my headphones in and I just like really kind of like to just like zen out,
Yeah,
like play some like really like chill, like relaxing music. And it's also like it encourages me to kind of just like enjoy the walk too. It's like I'm not sitting there thinking about or like trying to rap with Drake, I'm just gonna zen out and like really like enjoy kind of my walk and like this whole process of literally going from my apartment to Starbucks.
yeah, yeah. It's cool. I've been trying to not look at my phone when I walk my dog because like I could be, in the future
Yeah,
on Instagram or wherever, but or I
yeah,
could notice that tree and be like, wow, those flowers are beautiful today. You know?
yeah, definitely. It for sure like makes you like appreciate things a little bit more.
Mhm.
It's like when you're like purposefully like allowing yourself to kind of like be present, you're like, wow, like haven't seen this tree before, beautiful, or like, like that kind of stuff. So definitely like encourages that.
Yeah, totally. Um, what about food or anything? Kind of, one of the biggest changes for me was shifting my diet into eating clean, and that's
Hmm.
piece of my mental health and mental
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah. No, 1,000%. I'm gonna be honest, I definitely need to be a little bit better, but I definitely try to like drink as much water as possible, like especially like throughout the day, like just like keep myself hydrated. Like the first thing I do in the morning, like even before like I'll go get coffee, is like I just need to get like a glass of water in me, like just so I can like hydrate myself. Like I've been sleeping all night, whatever. But definitely like wanting to like be very conscientious about what I put into my body. Like when you think about it, like it is fuel. So it's
Mm.
like if the cleaner or the better that you can eat, I just think in general, like physically, I'm gonna feel better, and like mentally, I'm gonna be a little more sharper. I'm gonna be clearer.
Mm.
I definitely like will balance it out too. Like if I'm if I'm eating healthy all week, yeah, I'll treat myself to some buffalo chicken tenders on the weekend, So I definitely like notice though, like when I put an emphasis on like, hey, I'm gonna be good this week. Like I'm gonna meal prep, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, like I'm gonna be eating this, like my week is so much better because it's like I don't have to think about it. It's like I've got these clean foods that I look forward to eating, but then it's kind of like if I'm going day to day, being like, oh, what am I having for dinner? Then I'm like, oh shoot, I'm stressed. I need to get to Trader Joe's. I need to do this, this, and this, and So I definitely like personally like notice that difference too. Like if I'm like really eating better,
Yeah,
the whole week my mental health is just like that much better too.
that's awesome. It's crazy how much of your physical health affects your mental health, like how closely tied those two are.
Yeah, no, it's so wild. And like, I went on a run earlier today, and that was like the first time I've ran in like a couple of days. Like, like I try to get out and go run like 3, 4 times a week. But when I don't run, I'm like, oh man. And then it's so kind of crazy to like the days that I don't run, where like my mental health is, like where I'm at with it. Cause then it's like, oh, like I've been locked up in my apartment all day. Like I guess I'll go for a walk, and it's kind of just like it's almost like a burden at that
Mhm.
point. Whereas like if I'm physically active, then like it clears up my mind like that much better, or that much more, I should say.
Yeah, totally. I play hockey like at least once a week, but that one time a week,
Hmm.
I have to do it. My girlfriend knows, like Sunday nights or Tuesday nights, it's like I'm there because this morning I woke up, I felt it's like a reset, kind of like you work out
Yeah.
that hard and you're just wait, pop right out of bed kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure for you, like playing hockey like once a week or so on those Sundays or Tuesdays, you're like, this is my time. Like
Yeah.
this is my time to get away from my phone. I'm here with my buddies, like I'm out on the
Mhm.
rink, like, like this is my time to kind of just like be me and enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure like it's definitely like it's big too. Like have you noticed like if there's weeks where you don't get out there and play, like have you noticed like that there's been a difference on your health?
Yeah, totally. I just kind of feel a little bit more agitated at work and stuff. But it's funny you say that about like my time because a couple, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had like just one of the worst days I've had in a long time. And I ended up playing like the best hockey game all year. I was like,
Yeah.
I think it was just because I was like so ready to, be on the ice at 8 o'clock that night. And I was just 100% fully there for that hour and a half. I just
Yeah,
like
you were locked in.
really, really well. But,
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's, like, so important with sports or just could be painting, it could be anything really, to just
Yeah.
have that escape where you can just fully be just thinking about that next pass.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's like really important too. Like something that I've definitely talked about like with my friends is like just like everyone's like, oh, like find your passion or like find a hobby. And like I think that is so important because like you kind of need that moment, one, to yourself, but like two, like to have that like stimulation or to be able to like to do an activity and that be like your time. Like
Yeah.
nothing else matters, when you're out there on the ice and nothing else matters. Like when I'm on a run, like yes, I'm listening to music, but I'm not checking my phone. Like that is my time to like for myself. And I think that's important for people to find like whatever that activity may be where they can like have that dedicated time to themselves to like really be like, hey, this is my time right here, nothing else matters.
So yeah, it's awesome. Did you is there anything that you've learned like since you started therapy or since you started talking about mental health more that you'd say to, someone in their young 20s or a younger version of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, definitely to my younger version of myself, or even like someone like in their young 20s who are like, oh, like mental health's like important. Like, how do I talk about it or whatever? I would just be like, the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's okay to think what you're thinking. And the whole concept of it's okay not to be okay.
Mhm.
And when you want to reach out for help, that's not a sign of weakness. Like that is a sign of you wanting to improve or you wanting to address something that like needs to be addressed. And I think like that's one of the biggest things that I've learned. Like especially the it's okay to like feel what you're feeling. There's been times like where I'm like, oh man, like I'm super stressed about like work or like how am I going to get this done where I got these plans, that kind of stuff. Or like especially like when it comes to relationships, like not sure like, hey, do I see it going somewhere with this person? Like why do I feel this way? And allowing myself to be open to those feelings, whether it's positive or negative, because then from that, like I feel like you are able to just like make such clearer and more confident like decisions. If I sit here like for example, like if I let's say like I'm dating this girl and I'm just like not feeling it. This is not a real life situation. This is all hypothetical here. So like, if I'm dating this girl and I'm kind of like, what, like it's a great time, like she's great, she's lovely, but like I don't necessarily know like if I see this going, like why don't I see it going anywhere? Well, it's like, she does X, Y, and Z that may like rub me the wrong way, but like she's a good person. And it's like, I feel like a lot of times in a situation like that, some people might be like, oh, but she's a good person, so like I'll look past this stuff and kind of like push through or like force myself to like think it's gonna get better. Or, I've heard a lot, like especially in relationships when it's like, oh, I'll just give it time to see if anything changes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like giving it time is fine, but it's also like if you're feeling this, like it's okay to be feeling that. It's okay to kind of be like hesitant about a relationship, or it's okay to be like, oh, like I don't know how I'm feeling and allow yourself to sit with those feelings for a little bit. I
Mm.
think like being able to kind of like sit with your feelings and not necessarily like make like a fast decision about, a relationship or like whatever it may be is like really valuable because, I can sit here and be like, okay, like I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. Why am I feeling this? Let me think about it a little bit more. Is it this or is it that? And then from there, like more confidently be like, oh, I'm going to do this or this is better for me because of this. So that's I've always kind of been like more in tune like with my thoughts and like emotions and feelings and not necessarily like afraid to talk about them. But like there's been times where I'm like, oh, like it scares me that I'm thinking this way, so like I'm not going to address it, like I'm not going to think it, like I'm just going to try and like push through it instead of being like, Connor, why are you thinking this way?
Mm.
Like let's kind of like unpack this a little bit more, like, and to know that everything that like I'm feeling or thinking like is okay to be thinking. So like I don't know. That's kind of like a long ended answer to your question, but I think in short, yeah, it's okay to like have whatever thoughts or feelings that you're having. It's okay and encouraged to like want to reach out for help and like that's not a sign of weakness. So like there's a very spark notes edition of that answer.
Yeah, no, it's really good advice because, like, I feel like sometimes you just kind of gotta take a pause and be like, "Why am I
Yeah,
feeling this way?" And I know, like, just relationships and the dating scene in 2021 is pretty fast paced and so many
it's
options.
crazy.
Like, you got three
Yeah.
apps on your phone type deal, so people are
Yeah. No, literally.
going through the motions.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And it's like, I don't want to like necessarily turn this into a whole like dating conversation by any means, but like I think dating's like a perfect example because there's been times where I'm like, oh, like, do I, I'm talking to someone on an app or whatever, and they're like, oh, like let's get together. I'm like, yeah, like I'd love to meet you. And then I'm looking at the week, I'm like, I don't really like want to. Like not because like I don't want to meet you or anything, but it's just like I'm just not feeling it for
Right.
whatever. Like it's kind of like exhausting, It's like, do I really want to put in the energy of, getting a reservation, of sitting down, making small talk. And then afterwards it's like, okay, do I text her first? Does she text me? Like, it's just like, do I want to put myself through that? And it's
Yeah.
like, sometimes like, it's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay that you're like, can be excited about someone, but like not necessarily like want to go through the motions about it. And there's like no pressure at all too. So I think that kind of like circles back to like allowing yourself to like feel what you're feeling, and
Mhm.
not kind of like question, not, I don't want to say like you can question it obviously, but like not think it's a bad thing to be feeling, what you're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and I think it's like a sign of maturity too to just know yourself that well, and
Yeah.
like look at your week and be like, there's a lot of things that are more important than this right now, and what's best
Hmm.
for Connor or Garrison this week is doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And if this person, you just tell them the truth or whatever, and if they're understanding, then
Right.
then that's probably someone you want to be with, and not someone who's
Exactly.
all
That's
pissed
a
off.
pretty good sign.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, but yeah, it's really cool. I feel like nowadays, like kind of how I said it earlier, but like how receptive people are really becoming to, putting your mind first, and like really putting an emphasis on like your mental well-being. Like, are you familiar with We're Not Really Strangers? Have you seen that account or have heard of it at all?
Yeah, I not much. I've heard of it, but
Yeah. Yeah. So like I think they started just like as like one of those like, positivity like Instagram accounts, and like have really grown into like this huge brand that puts such an emphasis on like your mental health and your emotions and your feelings and everything. But they do like such an incredible job of kind of like normalizing it. So, like one of their biggest thing I think is like when someone asks you like, how are you? But it's like, how are you really? Like, do you
yeah,
answer truthfully? When someone's like, how are you? It's so easy to be like, yeah, I'm good. But it's like, are you really good? And so I feel like nowadays, like people are like really like wanting to check in on their friends, making sure that, everyone is in their life is like doing well. And it's not just like a good well, but it's like, are you doing well?
yeah. Times are changing. I had a friend this past weekend. Just like actually, we went out to the bars or whatever, and he was like, "Dude, I'm anxious about like meeting this girl or being with this girl.
Yeah.
Like, can you just like check in on me throughout the night?" Um,
Yeah.
and it all worked out and stuff. And then the next day, he was like, "Dude, thank you. Like, I've never been that anxious. Like, I really appreciate
Yeah.
it." It's like,
And
yeah, because he
I was
was
going to
like
say that.
he was like over analyzing her text
Yeah.
messages. You know what I mean? How guys will do that or whatever. And I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
she's also with her friends. Like you're really thinking too far into this.
Like, relax. Yeah, and the thing is, like, it was probably, like, a lot for him to be like, "Dude, like, can you check in with me? Like, I'm
Yeah,
anxious." Like, to, like, want to tell you that, because it could be so easy to be like, "Oh, like, it's fine, like, whatever," but, like, deep down, like, have that sense of anxiety, and for him to be like, "No, Garrison, like, I need you to, like, check in with me, like, I'm really anxious about it." Like, that probably took a lot for him to, say that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's one of my best friends and hasn't really ever done that before. So
Mhm.
it was cool to have him trust me and open up like that. But just
Yeah, yeah.
that people are
Do
moving.
you do you I was gonna ask you, do you feel like, obviously, like, you grew up playing hockey, do you think like the hockey community, I know like, there's up in Canada, there's like the Bell Let's Talk,
Yeah.
like mental health, which is awesome. Do you think like hockey community, like even like more specifically like in your friend group, like do you feel like there has been like kind of like this openness of mental health, or at least like willingness to like have these conversations, or do you feel like it's still kind of not necessarily like taboo, but kind of like not talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I do honestly think it's getting better. I think the Bellex talk has helped a lot.
Mhm.
I think hockey guys are all like one and the same kind of in the locker room, and cut from the same kind of cloth. And I think like you're good friends. You can just be there for each other, and the what you say in the locker room stays in the locker room type of energy with it. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's this hockey tough stigma growing up, but it's getting better. There's guys that have
Mhm.
like, had concussions and are retired and are talking about it way more. Um, So I think that's good to see, but I still think, the media and things need to. I had a guy on my first episode, Eric, who worked with a lot of NBA players and NHL players, and he talked about one particular NFL player who was the media's darling for a week when, and the headline said, this guy slit his wrists in college or whatever, and the media kind of just plays that up, but they don't really say, oh, his foundation is doing this, or good for him for up. And so it's getting better, but
yeah, it's getting there. And it's like this crazy, like just like obviously like the stigma won't end overnight. It's not like, all of a sudden like tomorrow we're going to wake up and men's mental health in general is going to be, totally normalized or anything like that. But it's like, if we can help someone, or if I can be there for a conversation or, someone dealing with something, it's like, that means the world. Yeah. Like one at a time, like that, honestly, like that means so much. And so when, when I posted that video and I saw the comments, I was like, wow, like this is really like landing with a lot of people. Like it's carrying a lot of weight. Like if someone can feel that way just from a video of mine, like on the internet, like that means more than, if that video got like 1 million views. Like I don't care about like that stuff, but like for someone to be like, hey, I just watch your mental health TikTok. Because of that, I want to start going to see a therapist because I want to address X, Y, and Z. I'm like, dude, absolutely. Like I support that. Like that's cool. And like that's the kind of stuff that like we can get excited about. And I think as more of that happens, and as kind of the whole topic of mental health, men's mental health becomes more normalized, and the conversation starts happening more and more, then it's like, great, like we are getting there. And I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's like, it's those one direct messages or the one things that really, they get me going too, man. I've had a lot of people, but it's like, when I first started this a long time ago, my professor, I think he asked a question, or I started this as kind of an app idea where people would be able to talk to each other online. And it was kind of an impact question, kind of workshop or something. And I said, I wanted to impact 1 billion people someday or something like that. And my professor pulled me aside after. He goes, yeah, like you're right. And you're headed in the right direction, but it just takes one. Like,
no, seriously, it does. Because, like the conversation that you have with me, I can go tell someone about, and then they're gonna be like, oh, like Connor and Garrison were talking about this. I'm gonna go listen to the podcast. And then that person shares it, it's just like a trickle effect. And, especially like if men out there are like wanting to have these conversations, or like, sit there and they listen to this podcast and they're like, wait, like these two guys are talking about, like they're addressing some feelings that I'm feeling. Like, it's not weird for me to be feeling this way. Like, cool. Like something's not wrong with me, and it's like, no, of course, like nothing's wrong with you. Like, and it's just, exactly. You're normal. You're a human. Like everyone like, freaks out about that stuff. And it's like, no, like, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to like be dealing with all these things. Like life is like as much stress we put on it, like life is like very stressful. And it's like, let's simplify it. Like, let's slow down a little bit. Like let's take care of our mental health, because, like at the end of the day, like that's what we've got. And, that's what we're working with. So it's like, it's fucking important, like let's get on it.
Yeah, your mental health is way more important than some test or some job or
exactly
some girl that you hardly know thinks about you.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Beyond true. True.
So what's next for you? I know you do video and video producing and photography and media for Harvard right now. Sports.
So not right now. I used to. So I was with Harvard in their athletic department as the assistant director of multimedia. So doing like a lot of like creative video, photography, that kind of stuff. I left that in this past November, and now I'm currently at DraftKings on their social media team, which is like a lot of fun. Talk about like a world of difference there, going from Harvard to a sports gambling company. But like, it's really cool. And like there's obviously like a lot of opportunity like in the industry and everything. And then as far as like TikTok and like my personal like social stuff goes, for me it's just like fun stuff that I like to do on the side. Like I don't think too much about it. Like like I was saying, like if I can impact someone, or if I can, make someone laugh, or someone to be like, oh, like this is really funny, like, and share that with someone, like that's important to me. So, I'm going to continue doing it like on the side, like personally. And, if bigger things come from it, great. Like absolutely, like I'll explore it. And it's really cool because after the mental health TikTok that I posted, I had like a couple like brands and like clothing companies reach out to me who are like very like brands that support like mental health, and they're like, hey, we want to send you stuff. I'm like, this is so cool. Like it is so cool. Yeah. One, obviously it's cool to get kind of like free shirts and everything, but it is so cool to see these brands that are so supportive for mental health, like see that and be like, hey, he's talking about it. Like, let's start normalizing this conversation. So, I think like long term down the road, like if more of that stuff can come up, like especially with mental health, like that would be awesome. I'm actually in the process of it's not like nothing's finalized or anything like that, but like working through this concept of doing a like group workout / men's mental health like workshop. So essentially the idea behind it is originally I was thinking of doing like a charity like Soul Cycle ride or something like that, where like the proceeds would go to like the Kevin Love Foundation or like a mental health foundation or something like that. And I was thinking, I was like, you know what, like that'd be a lot of fun, but it's so, red, yellow tape with Soul Cycle, how, corporate it is. Like, let's play into the Boston city and let's try and like make something here. So the idea is to get some of the like mental health, fitness like instructors here in the city who are like very big advocates for it, teach like a group workout. And then after the workout, we have some like catered food, and then we do like a little like workshop of like, these small group discussions of like, 10 people per group, where like each kind of like instructor is kind of like the MC of those, group discussions and kind of like guide discussions from it. So that's in the works. Not again, like nothing's finalized, but it's definitely something that's kind of like a passion project of mine right now, like really wanting to see it through because, it is so important. Like obviously like you and I can sit here and have this conversation. I think it would be so beneficial for like, maybe a 21-year-old in the city struggling with the same things that I struggle with. And he gets a workout in and can talk to fellow guys about, these issues and why it's so important. Like that's awesome to me. Yeah. So I'm hoping that like takes off. But like I said, like really kind of like in the baby step process of this right now, like trying to like talk to the right people and get it all formulated.
Yeah, let me know, man. I'll come out for that. I'm only
make a little trip. Yeah,
for sure. And there's a good friend of mine who just wrote a book about anxiety, and he went to Babson, and he's in the Boston area.
Oh no way!
Yeah, his name's Wes Woodson. I'll connect you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
He's a mover and shaker in the mental health stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, I'd love to help however I could with that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely keep you updated. Like if this, hopefully, I mean, ideally would love to get something like on the books, like within the next month or two. But we'll definitely, keep you updated, like make a little trip to Boston and get together and, crush a workout and talk mental health.
That'd be perfect, dude. Yeah, I'm trying to get on TikTok a little bit more. I just posted my first couple of videos, but
love it.
I think that would be a good place to like get some of these awesome snippets from the podcast like on there and just like maybe talk about either what my guest thinks or all the stuff that's worked for me. Just because
definitely
the TikTok or the podcast and my Instagram and stuff is cool and a lot of people will see it, but TikTok, it's so crazy how like it can just catch, or it seems like
wildfire.
Yeah, the place to reach more people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like it's a huge, like if you just hashtag mental health, then it's like on all these people's pages that interact with a lot of mental health stuff. So definitely like, like you said, like the reach that you can get on TikTok, talking about like this topic. And the thing is too, it's like, there's not a lot of guys on TikTok that are talking about mental health. So it's like, there's such an opportunity there to like really leave a lasting impression with a lot of people.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I might reach back out for some tips on that.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me
Seems like
know.
you're pretty good at it so far. But
Yeah, got too much free time.
yeah, what I was just gonna. I thought about this one earlier. What do you do if you're having a bad day? Like, how do you catch yourself or kind of fix that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, like just like everybody, there's definitely days where I wake up and I'm like, oh, like I'm bummed about this or something, like this didn't go my way, or like, how to approach it or like how to deal with it. And like for me, like the most important thing is just like I one of the best examples is recently I went through a situation with a girl where it didn't end the way that I wish it would have ended, and caught myself being like, wow, like this sucks. Like I kind of feel like foolish here in this situation, blah, 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 all these things. And like was really kind of like down about it, even though in the grand scheme of things, like even though like I didn't have a real reason to be like upset or like frustrated with everything, I was just like, wow, like this sucks. Like I was really bummed about it. And then it's like I'm sitting here stressing out about a situation that was out of my control.
Right.
It's like I literally couldn't control anything in the situation. And it was just one of those things where she was like, hey, you know what? Like, not for me.
Yeah.
And and I think that I always think about my parents told me growing up that there's two things in life that you can control, and then everything else is a result of these two things, and that's your attitude and your work ethic. So when you think about it, it's like it's so true. It's like your attitude, how you approach situation, or how you respond to a situation, that's going to result into your experience. And then obviously like your work ethic is like how much you're going to invest yourself into that situation, right? So in this girl situation here, it's like, okay, like yes, this sucks, it didn't end the way that I wanted to end it. What am I going to do about it? Am I going to sit here and really kind of like worry and stress out about things that I couldn't control in that situation? No, that's kind of like silly of me to do that, because it's like I did everything I could in that situation and it just wasn't reciprocated. It's like, okay, you know what? Like, all right, it I got to move on. Like, let me invest like my time and energy into something different. So then it's like, how can I shift that attitude, that work ethic, that my physical investment into something else, whether that's a hobby, whether that's another relationship, or a run later that afternoon, that kind of stuff. So I'd probably say like if I'm feeling down, or like I wake up and it's like kind of like a shitty day or whatever, I'm just like, okay, like one, like let's change your attitude about this, because if I sit and sulk, or if I sit and I'm just like, this sucks, it's just going to make things worse. But if I respond to the situation and be like, you know what, like, yes, this is shitty, but like, what am I going to do? How can I respond to this situation, and go from there? And I think like that's kind of like the best way. And that's kind of like how I've always been too, is kind of like this very like yes and mentality. It's like, okay, this happens. How am I gonna, respond to it, and go from there. So yeah, that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, that's cool. It's all how you react to it, and then
Yeah,
like when I'm sure when you go on a run, you feel amazing. So it's connecting with that feeling where it's like, all right,
exactly.
sitting in on my couch now, but I know that if I go on a run, that I'm going to feel awesome
hmm
in
Yeah, yeah, like it's so true. And there's been times where I'm like, oh, like I don't want to run, but I literally will sit there and be like, I know if I go run, I'll feel 10 times better.
an hour.
And it's like, oh, it's just that connection between like my mental state, like my attitude about it, and then like my physical body. So I think that like that connection itself is like so important.
That's awesome. Last one I got for you. If there's,
Yeah.
it sounds like Kevin Love is going to be your answer, maybe. But if there's any kind of role models or guys that you'd love to kind of work with or make some cool videos with in the future on this topic, who would it be?
Yeah, definitely Kevin Love. I mean, he's right up there for me. Like I've been following him and his foundation like for a couple of years now, and I'm like, all the stuff that he's doing is just so impressive. And then there's this football player. He's in the NFL. He just got traded to the Colts. His name's Isaac Rochelle. He was on the Chargers, and he's got this foundation called it's the Do Good Foundation. I think that's what it's called. And it's this whole concept of like being a good person and just doing good. And I think that like kind of like directly applies to like mental health. It's like, when you're thinking about it, it's like, okay, like how am I going to be like the most genuine or kind or loving person as I possibly can? You know, this whole concept of like it costs $0 to be a good person.
Yeah.
And you know, that's kind of like what his foundation is like built on. So I think like he's the man, and like what they're doing, you know, with their foundation is like so cool. So, you know, those guys are incredible. Definitely like kind of two guys immediately that come to mind when I think about like mental health and like, you know, what they're doing for obviously the NBA community, what they're doing, what Isaac's doing for the NFL community. And like, you know, I'd be like, if I could, you know, do something with them, man, that would be incredible.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, the do good mentality. It's like my grandma used to say, you want to feel better about yourself, just go do something nice for someone.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. 1,000%. And it's funny because like that's such like kind of like my mentality too. I've actually for the longest time have been like thinking about getting like a tattoo that says be good, do good.
Mm.
Cause it's just like, just be a good person. Like that's all it takes.
It's simple. Make someone else's day just by
Yeah.
holding it for 'em or something sometimes.
Literally. Yeah. Or just like a simple compliment. Like complimenting a random person goes a long way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not like I sit there and be like, you know, great shoes or, you know, whatever, but it's like just something for someone to be like, wow, like that was really nice. Like you took time to notice something and, you know, have to
Yeah.
say something about it. Like that, it goes a long way, I feel like.
Yeah, that's cool. And just to like not be afraid to tell the cashier at the gas station, like, yo, that's a cool hat or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You know, just like something that's small
Yeah.
and it makes their day, you know, just something simple like that just makes someone's day.
It's awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to keep following along on TikTok, and
Yeah,
then I'll come out to Boston. We'll collab on some stuff, and
absolutely. Yeah, I know. I gotta get this workout thing going.
yeah, man. I'm glad I found you. Glad we connected, and I think you shared a lot of useful things for people to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. No, I obviously like appreciate, you know, you having me on. And like I think, you know, this is such an important topic and a topic that's like really like swept under the rug a lot. So, you know, for people watching or like listening, like if they want to talk mental health, like my DMs are open, like more than happy to like have these conversations. Like I think it is like so important. So, you know, thanks for having me on, dude. This is awesome. So cool.
Yeah, totally. For those not watching, it's Coyne on Instagram and Twitter. That's CONCOYNE. Go give him a follow. And awesome dude.
Love it.
Sweet, bro. Yeah, we'll chat soon. And thanks again for coming on, man.
Absolutely, dude. Of course. Thanks for having me.
Sweet.